Hi, I'm Renée Walker, a mindset mentor, speaker, and lover of all things spiritual. I believe that at our core, we are all spiritually wired for love, peace, success, and abundance. Here on the podcast, we're diving into mindset, wellness, and business, but always through a spiritual lens. Let's just say we're going deep, but we're keeping it light. So let's elevate your life from the inside out, one conversation at a time. Welcome to Spiritually Wired. Welcome to Spiritually Wired. I am very much looking forward to this episode because we're going to dive deeper into one of my favorite topics, and that is your intuition. I do believe that everyone is intuitive. It really is a matter of bringing more awareness and intention behind it. So what we're going to do in this episode is explore a little bit more what intuition is, and then we're going to look at 3 steps that can help you to cultivate your intuition and really how it can enhance and elevate your life. So let's get to it. The definition of intuition is the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. And why I think that definition is important is the fact that it's the ability to understand something immediately. Like your intuition speaks to you immediately, and there is no conscious reasoning behind it. It's not something that you think about. It is something that comes to you that you can't quite explain. You're like, I don't know how I know, but I just know. Or, many people will use the term, oh, I have this gut feeling or this knowing. So why it is challenging sometimes to explain and to talk about is because it's not a tangible sense, if you will. And I do believe that it is a sixth sense, and that it is one of our superpowers when we can really lean into our intuition and learn to develop it, to cultivate it, and to trust it. It's incredible what it does to our life. It will elevate every aspect, your relationships, because you're just more dialed in, tuned in to the connection to the person that you're in that relationship with. It will elevate your health because now you're actually paying attention to what your body is telling you. It will also help to elevate your business because now you are paying attention to maybe the signs and where your passion is and where it makes sense to go further, right? To explore further in your business. So it is amazing how it touches every aspect of your life. It's not something that's been celebrated in our society. And I love there's a quote by Albert Einstein. He says, "The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift." So leaning in, listening, cultivating your intuition is not about ignoring your rational and logical mind. It is about really harnessing both so that they can work together. We do live in a world where the rational mind is what is celebrated more, and then we kind of just maybe look down on, or we just don't fully appreciate the power of the intuitive mind. So more and more what I'm seeing and what I love to see is just people becoming more aware of just how powerful their intuition is. And again, it's about both of them working together. Your intuition is actually linked to your third eye chakra. And when your third eye chakra is open, it's like when the left side and the right side of the brain come together. It's about opening both so that they are in harmony, the logical mind and the intuitive mind. So I'm not here in this episode to say ignore your intellectual abilities. I'm just saying, yes, you want to honor that and allow for your intuition to maybe even guide the way and then support it with your rational mind. So it really is about both of them working together. You know, your intuition is the voice of your higher self. And if you listen to episode 3, which is lessons that have shaped who I am, the first lesson that I share is that we are not our thoughts. We are the space in between our thoughts. And I believe that our intuition lives in that space. And so part of being able to cultivate and to really tune into the voice of our intuition means also being in that space, creating more of that space so that we can actually hear the voice of our higher self. So we're going to actually explore that a little bit more when we get into the 3 steps to cultivating your intuition. And the first step is to spend time in stillness. And that is exactly what we just talked about. In order to be able to hear and to listen to that voice, we need to be in a place of hearing it. The thing is that our lives today are so busy and they are so loud. So your energy is being pulled in so many different directions, so many different responsibilities. And then apart from that, add the fact that we live in a world where we have TVs that are always on. We now have our phones, our devices that are attached to our hip that are constantly pulling us away from the moment. So we're always being distracted, and there is just a influx of information that is constantly coming. And the thing with this is that the more information is coming into our mind, the more it becomes really challenging to discern what is someone else's thoughts, someone else's opinions, someone else's views, the expectations, the responsibilities, and what is actually the voice of our higher self. So we need to create an environment in our lives that supports those moments of stillness, because it is in the stillness that we actually can hear, that we can connect with it. Now, there's different ways that we can be in stillness, and there's certain practices that help us, and meditation being one of them. Meditation really just helps us to create more space in between our thoughts. It helps us to cultivate that sense of presence. But when it comes to your intuition and to spending time in stillness, it is really just in the quiet. It is in those first moments, maybe when you wake up, you know, you have your cup of coffee or cup of tea, and you take a moment to just be quiet. Maybe it's throughout the day and you go for a walk and you just pay attention to the sensations of your feet on the pavement, and you pay attention to your environment. That is stillness. Maybe it's turning off the TV in your house or turning off the music and really just being in the quiet. Because what happens is, because we are so used to living in a world where there is constant noise, it becomes a bit challenging to be in the stillness, in the quiet. So the more that you can invite stillness in your life, silence, the more you are able to hear and to discern that voice, that whisper, because it always speaks in whispers. Maybe I shouldn't say always. There are times when it's more of it feels like there's a funny, I will say sometimes like, "Ooh, I think I was just spiritually slapped right now," because it can feel that way. But it is about turning down the volume on all of the external noises, turning down the volume on your subconscious mind, your even, the beliefs that you may have that are just feel very loud, so that you can turn up the volume on your higher self. So spending time in stillness and really intentionally incorporating it into your daily life is a big part of cultivating that. The second step is to tune into your physical senses. And that is because our intuition speaks to us in a full body experience. So, when we spoke about earlier how the rational mind has been really celebrated in our society, and the thing is that we tend to really pay attention to our thoughts. When we start to understand that we are not our thoughts, we begin to, it gives us the opportunity to really come into our bodies. So when you have an intuitive moment, and it's interesting because I will still use the term like an intuitive thought, but ultimately your intuition is going to speak to you as a full body experience. So for me, I feel it in my body. I'll feel like just a tingling, or there's just, it's a knowing that is beyond the mind. It's not an intellectual process, it's a full body process. And this is where the voice of our intuition is unique to each and every one of us. So you need to learn how your intuition speaks to you, because it may be different to how it speaks to me. Sometimes some people will feel like they'll have more, like just an image comes to their mind, like they kind of see it more. I have a lot of my students are very, they tune in, they're very visual, right? They'll see colors, they'll see different things. So it may come more as like the flash of an image that comes to mind, like you see a person, or that may be not outside of you, just in your own mind, but it may come to you in the form of more of a visual. It can be more of like an something that you hear, right? You can hear that kind of whisper, or just you almost hear it as a thought, but it has maybe a different frequency to it, where it stands out from the other thoughts that you've had. You can feel it as a knowing in your body, where it's like your entire body just has either like a feeling sensation, or just again that full body knowing. And so learning to be attuned to how your intuition speaks to you is important. And that kind of takes time, right? It takes time to pay attention. You want to pay attention to how it shows up in your life. So it's moving away from the mind and more now being in your body, so that you can receive and you can pay attention to what is showing up. The next step is to learn to ask, and then to listen, and then to trust, and then to detach. So those are many steps all in one. So maybe I'll break them down. The asking piece is so important, because your intuition, so if we think of it as being the voice of your higher self, that means you are in relationship with your higher self, with your intuition, with that aspect of you, the truth of who you are. And any relationship requires time, it requires nurturing, and it requires communication. So, being in a place of practicing asking. So, if you are at a crossroads or you are wondering, okay, should I, is this the right next step for me? Is this relationship feeling right? What is happening with my body? Maybe you're experiencing some health challenges and you really want to tune in to, what is going on. And again, I'm not saying, yes, you go and you call your doctor and you do all those things, but also alongside of that is paying attention to what's actually happening. And one thing that we forget to do is to just ask. So we can ask, like, where's this coming from? And does this feel right to me? So remembering that you can ask, because your intuition, there's a relationship aspect to it. There's a communication. It's speaking to you, so you can speak to it. So remembering to ask, and then of course the listening piece of it, which is so important. And I will say this, the listening piece is not as easy as it seems, or maybe it doesn't seem easy, but why listening can be difficult is that, yes, there is the fact that you need to be in a place where you've become aware and you're really tuned into the sensations that are going on, right? In your body, you're really paying attention to your intuition. But the other aspect of it that makes it a little bit more challenging is the fact that sometimes our intuition is telling us something that we don't want to hear. And that is where we often block the messages. We often block our intuition because we just don't want to hear it. And I am sure that in your life, you can look back so many times on different experiences where you're like, you know what, if I really go back to that moment, I knew it. I felt it. I knew something wasn't right. I knew there was something happening, but I just wasn't ready to face it. And so my way of dealing with it was to ignore it. And here's what I tell people, because this comes up a lot in meditations. I feel that for some people, they find it challenging to meditate and they don't want to meditate because they're afraid of what is going to show up when they meditate. So, same thing with the asking of the questions. It's like you don't really want to ask because you already know the answer and you just don't want to hear it. What I tell people in that case, it's like, it's not because you are being intuitively guided. Like, let's say you know that intuitively that you're in a relationship that doesn't serve or something feels off there. It doesn't mean that you have to take action right away. What you want to do is at least acknowledge it. And I say this because I want to give you permission if you're in a difficult, more like position where you're being guided to do something that you know is big and it requires a lot. It's okay to say, I hear you, and I need time. I need time to process this. I need time to be with this. So that can be helpful when our intuition is speaking to us in ways that may not be what we want to hear. Just give yourself time and space to process what is happening. Don't feel that because you're acknowledging something that you've always known, because you're acknowledging it doesn't mean that you have to do anything with it right away. So take that out of the equation and more focus on, okay, I hear you. Yes, this is difficult for me to accept, and I'm going to take some time to be with that, to process that. Now, on more easier things, right? And this is the fun part of intuition, is the part of practicing it is sometimes it's just fun things that come to mind, or more easy things of, I really feel, wow, like this person just came to mind and I really feel like calling that person or doing this, or, and I'm sure again, you've experienced where you think of someone and they're calling you or they're texting you or something like that happens. So you want to, ideally, yes, you want to act on when your intuition speaks to you, you're there for it. But I just feel that it's important for me to share that other part of it, because I just know that it stops us so often from actually listening because we're just not ready. So if that's the case, give yourself permission, give yourself time to process whatever it is your intuition is guiding you towards. So it does take some time. And again, that kind of is tied a bit with the idea of being detached to what you want the answer to be. And that is also a bit challenging. And it's like, okay, if you're going to ask your intuition to guide you, if you're going to like really learn to trust your gut feeling, that means that you can't be attached to what you think it should be, because your intuition may be guiding you in a different direction. So we can't be attached to what we think the outcome is. We can't be attached to what we think our intuition should be telling us. So practicing detachment around that is so incredibly important. And practicing detachment is actually one of the greatest spiritual lessons that we have. So it's something that I definitely want to explore in a separate episode, because I think detachment is so big. So we want to, if we're going to be leaning into our intuition, we want to be open. We want to be open to what it shows up. We can't tell it what we want to hear or what we think it should be telling us. So practicing detachment is also a big part of really learning to cultivate your intuition and cultivate your trust in it. Now, one of the biggest or most frequently asked questions that comes with following your intuition is, how do I know if it is my intuition or if it's just my mind spinning out of control? How can I tell the difference? And that is something that is a process. And I know we are continuously exploring. Every person has their own journey of getting there. And we've already talked about how part of the process of trusting is like all of these different steps, right? Really the stillness and the leaning in and the paying attention, and you're developing a muscle. It takes time to develop that muscle of trust. But one thing from a spiritual perspective, the book A Course in Miracles teaches that everything is either coming from love or from fear. So we have the duality of love and fear. So everything is in life usually coming from one or the other. Our mind, our subconscious mind, and our nervous system are more so rooted coming from a place of fear, only because they are wired to protect us. So the main purpose of our subconscious mind, our nervous system, is to keep us safe. Keep us safe from threats, potential threats, keep us safe from dangers in our life. So yes, it's coming ultimately from a loving place to protect us, but it is there for survival. While as love is, and I use the term love, or the Course in Miracles uses the term love more from a higher power, a consciousness, that energy that is always moving through. So it's not, love from an attachment place. It's just love being the highest frequency of all. And the way to know whether this is your intuition or whether this is your your subconscious mind is to ask yourself, is this coming from love or is this coming from fear? And so whenever you're wondering, whenever you're questioning what, like, is this my intuition or where is this coming from? Pause and ask yourself, is this coming from love or is this coming from fear? Because the thing is that, again, love, your intuition may be warning you. It may be saying, hey, this relationship does not feel right. This opportunity does not feel right. This, this sensation in your body, whatever's going on in your body right now, it doesn't feel right. There's something that we want to explore. So it may be warning you. It's not that your intuition is always rainbows and sunshines and, singing. It'd be nice, but it really can be there to warn you, to steer you in a certain direction. But the energy behind it is one of love. It's one of protection and it's one of support. And that is where we come back to all of those previous steps, because the only way to start to know is to really start to pay attention and to feel, okay, how does love communicate with me and how does fear communicate with me? I know for me, my subconscious, my ego, I always feel it in my chest. That's where I experience it. And so usually if I really tune into fear, fear coming from beliefs that are limiting beliefs or whatever they may be, I tend to feel it more as this almost like either anxious or heavy energy in my chest area, in my heart area. While as my intuition feels very different. It's more full body and it feels more expansive. It doesn't feel as there's not as much like contraction in my body, less tension. It's more expansive, even where it wants to, maybe steer me in a different direction. So that is a great, and I'm constantly asking myself this, right? Is this coming from ego or is this coming from love? Where is this coming from? If there's a project that I want to say yes to, it's like, okay, where is this really coming from? Is this just the ego that is looking for external validation, that wants you to do this so that it's going to look good? Or is this really where you are intuitively being guided to go next? And I certainly don't do it perfectly, and we want to remove the idea of any of this being perfect, because it never is. There's never black or white. It's always gray. Yet it can be that real supportive force. Like when you can learn to work with it, this is when you're going downstream. This is where you can really let yourself go with the flow of life, of where you are being guided to go. And, ultimately, when we come from that true place of trusting that we are being guided, trusting that we are going where we need to go, that things are happening for our highest and best, then we can let go of the grip around our intuition. Because here's the thing, sometimes our intuition also will lead us towards something where, because we need to learn a certain lesson, or we just need to go in a certain direction, and in the moment it may not feel good. You're like, oh my gosh, I thought this was going to be great, but it may not feel that way. However, in listening and in taking that path, it's exactly where you needed to be to go to the next step. It's that lesson that you needed to learn from a certain person that allowed you to meet to the other person that presented this opportunity to you. So to me, there is such a surrendering piece to it all that is what ties it all together. is that surrendering piece of, okay, we're trusting our intuition, but above all else, we're also trusting that we are guided to wherever we need to be, that the universe is working for us as opposed to against us. And that is such a key piece to it. So hopefully this has given you some thoughts around how you can really cultivate your intuition and learn to lean into it more, and also how it can truly elevate and impact all of the different areas of your life when you give yourself permission to really lean into it and trust in yourself. Trust in the voice of your higher self. Trust in the ability of your body to communicate with you. And that's where it all starts to come together. As I mentioned, I have created a download, Cultivating Your Intuition Guidebook, which has all of the resources that we've talked about, but a few more, including some affirmations and some journaling prompts. So you can download your guidebook. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. And until next time, I just want to remind you that you are spiritually wired to connect with your intuition, to allow for your intuition to guide you towards clarity, towards your purpose, towards alignment in every aspect of your life. I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Spiritually Wired. I wanted to remind you that I am hosting a special retreat. It's called the Align and Design Soul Retreat. This October 25th to the 27th. It's happening in Caledon at Mount Alverno, which is this gorgeous, beautiful luxury resort. I'm hosting it with my friend and colleague, Brenda Jasmine. And together, we're bringing the science of positive psychology along with the spiritual wisdom of meditation, of yoga. And this year, we're actually introducing some sound healing and drumming circle, and we are going to just have an incredible time. We've got this weekend designed for you where you can truly come back to yourself, so disconnect from all of the external world and give yourself that time and space to just be, to realign yourself on a physical level, but also realign yourself with what truly matters to you and where you want to bring your energy towards moving forward. So if this is speaking to you, if your intuition is guiding you to join us, I'm going to put the link in the show notes. It's the Align and Design Soul Retreat from October 25th to the 27th. Of course, you can also join us in the Spiritually Wired membership, where we dive deeper into mindset, wellness, and business, but all through that spiritual lens. We have some weekly live classes, some weekly live meditations, and also an extensive library of recorded classes that help to support you on your spiritual journey. So I'm going to also add the link to the membership in the show notes. We will see you soon.